Get your Bibles ready. You can go to James chapter 1. I've said it a lot of times before. Sometimes I kind of get thoughts and I guess what you want to call messages and sermons. Sometimes from places that might be a little different than how everybody else does it or gets them. You put batteries in it a while ago. I said, good, that one's got fresh batteries in it. You walked off with it. But sometimes, like I said, I wonder sometimes, does thoughts come to me in the same ways that they do other people? But I would imagine that they don't, because everybody's different. God deals with everybody in different ways. But when I came home from work yesterday evening, Sister Sheena and the girls were watching the movie My Girl. And not only were they watching that, but I walked in at the park just after the little boy got stung by all the hornets. So they're full ball-out mode. And Samantha was trying to hold it together pretty good, but and I actually got all the way, the movie was over. Sister Sheena was actually kind of scanning through to find something a little bit more upbeat and a little happier to play to get their mind off of what they had just watched. And all at once, Samantha just couldn't contain it no more. She busted. She went to bawling, crying her eyes out. And Sister Sheena said, what is it, or why, or I can't remember what it was. And I looked there, I said, why do you think? Look at what you just made this young sitting here and watch. And she said, I didn't make her, and we laughed a little bit about it. But in the movie, now I know it is a movie, but even in it, at the little boy's funeral, the preacher says that one thing runs through his mind, and I'm sure this has been said at many funerals around the world. He said the biggest thing running through his mind was why. And I got to wondering how often in any kind of circumstance, not just a death, but how many times have we asked God that question? Why? And never have really gotten an answer as to why. Maybe got strength to keep on, maybe got everything figured out, to get us by, but I began to think about the importance, how important questions are. Even though sometimes we don't get them answered when we take them to God, but still and yet, even just in life in general, how important questions are. If you don't ask why, if you don't ask why does it work that way, how do you do it, you'll never know. And in James chapter 1 verse 5 says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. Ask him. There was a story I heard one time of a little boy playing out in the yard, and I used to do this same thing. If I found a sandbox, I wanted to dig to the very bottom of it and get below the sand and get down into the actual dirt. Well, this little boy must have been a lot like me, because that's what he had done. He done got through all the sand, and he's actually digging in that good black dirt. He's digging, and when he digs in, and he finds a big rock. And he digs out all the way around that rock, and he tries to push the rock, he tries to pick the rock up, it's in his way, he's got something in his mind that he's trying to do right there in that sandbox, and that rock just ain't going to work for him. He's got to move it, he pushed it, he pulled it, got his little Tonka truck and tried to shove it out of the way, just tried everything he could think of, and he went inside and told his daddy, Daddy, I have tried everything I can, I've done everything I can do to move that rock, and I can't move it. And his daddy looked at him and said, son, you haven't done everything because you haven't come and asked me to help you move it. And I thought of that. I've never been able to forget that story because of how important is it, and how often do we still do that to this day. And that might have been the point that the person was trying to make at the time that I heard it being told, was we fight and fight and fight with something. We push, we pull, we tug, we get aggravated and get out of the blood pressure, just get all kinds of out of whack, when all we needed to have done was just stopped and asked.
Right. Amen.
Maybe even asked a fellow man for help, or went to God and we began to pray. And because, you know, with us being Christians and living a life for God, we're not supposed to stumble around in the dark grabbing and hoping we're going to grab the right answer. We're not supposed to play Russian roulette and try, well, this might not work, but I'm going to try it. Well, that didn't work, so I'm going to try this. We are supposed to actually go to and talk to God and ask Him and look at circumstances. You got decisions that you got to make, and the really difficult ones, and you don't know what to do about it. Not everybody's got all the best advice in the world to give. But you can find out from God of what you need to do next. I like my little notes that my Bible has right here. It says that when James is speaking of wisdom, he means practical discernment. Wisdom begins with respect for God, leads to right living, and results in increased ability to tell right from wrong. God is willing to give us this wisdom, but we will be unable to receive it if our goals are self-centered instead of God-centered. To learn God's will, we need to read God's Word, ask Him to show us how to obey it, and then we must do what He tells us. It's like Sister Sheena said a while ago. You can't just say, oh, I'll take the Bible and go. I'll never be without my Bible. Everywhere I go, it's going to be by my side. I will always have my Bible with me. But it's just like they say in some classes about talking about weapons and different things and firearms. They say, they'll tell you quick, that weapon is not, the gun is not the weapon. Your mind is the weapon. The firearm, the knife, the gun, whatever you might want to be talking about, that is the tool. Your mind and how you're going to operate that thing is your weapon. Yeah. This Bible, yes, it is the living Word of God, but without you learning from God Himself on how to use it, how to apply it, how to discern it, how to apply it to your life every day that you live, that is how it becomes the weapon that God intended for it to be. You know, we know that God, hey, He's all-powerful. He breaks down the strongholds of the enemy. He's the strong and mighty tower. A lot of songs call it that we go to. We want that refuge when you need that peace of mind, when you need that security, that comfort. You know that God is where you can go to. But what closer could you have of getting to somewhere than to actually reading the words that He gave these men to write down in this book? The answers to a lot of our questions are found right here in this book. But I began thinking some more about how, questions. Well, what happens to a person? Because, about every child that you can meet all go through a particular phase where every 5 seconds or every other word out of their mouth is why. Why? And we may get aggravated sometimes, and we wish they would just hush and quit asking, but in all honesty, they're asking that because they do not know. They're needing to learn. There's a hunger there. They don't understand, but yet they want to, and so they are not afraid for that time to ask a question. Now, yeah, they get a little older. They begin to get a little bit more self-conscious. They get a little bit easier to be embarrassed. They don't want somebody to think they're asking a question that they should already know the answer to. Somebody might think less of them. So they begin to kind of keep things to themselves, and they don't ask as much. They just kind of think they understand. But I'm talking about somewhere around 5 or 6 years old, in that frame of mind where you can't embarrass them. They don't care what you might think they're supposed to already know. They're going to ask their questions. Right. And I was thinking how in Matthew chapter 19, when they were talking about verse 13, if you want to go there, Matthew 19 and 13, when there says that there were brought unto him little children, that he should put his hands on them and pray, and the disciples rebuked them. And Jesus said, suffer little children, and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. And he laid hands on them and departed thence. Now, they rebuked them. Yeah, y'all youngins, this is grown-up stuff. Y'all go on and get out of here. But he made that point and said, no, let them kids come on in here. Suffer little children, and forbid them not to come unto me. Why? Because a little child ain't afraid to ask a question. Now, I tell people a lot of times on the job or different things, if maybe I was training somebody how to do something or trying to show them, and I would tell them, look, now, while we're doing this, there is no such thing as a stupid question. If you feel like you need to know, ask it. Ain't going to be nobody tell you, you dumb, you should already know, you shouldn't even be this far into this or without knowing that. Ain't none of that going to be no kind of way. But you do see times where sometimes you just can't help it. I seen a video where a man walked into a store and he put 2 bags of dog food up on the counter. And the cashier, simply just trying to make small talk, said, well, you got to get your dog some food? He looked up at him and said, no, it's for my zebra. Seen another one where a World War II veteran got up to the register and was buying some stuff, and he had an alcoholic beverage up there, and the guy behind the counter, or probably in his early 20s, looked at him and said, sir, are you over 21? And the World War II veteran, probably 80, 85 years old, looked up and said, are you stupid? We ain't got to always be rude to people, but one that I witnessed with my own 2 eyes, and I was 8 or 9 years old, so I might get some of the details wrong, but when we were moving from Bruton up to Irwinton, we had Granny and Grandpa's stuff loaded up. We had the truck loaded up, the bed of the truck with all bunch of different stuff, boxes, and we had a trailer that had furniture and everything in it. And like I said, I might be a little hazy on some of this stuff because I was very young, but we stopped by a store to get something to drink, and we got up to the counter. The guy back there behind it looked at my Grandpa Mitchell and said, well, y'all moving? And Grandpa said, no, we like to load our stuff up every once in a while and drive it around and air it out real good, and then we'll just go back home and put it back up. And it's stuff like that will probably, I'm never asking anybody ever again if they got anything on the back of their truck what they're doing. That man could have just got some kind of thought in his mind. And it's sad to say that there have been people who have been trying to seek out answers and reached out to someone, hey, I don't know, well, you should have by now. They kind of get shot down. They get that negative approach. They get that, if you was what I am, you would already know. No. Suffer, put up with it. Not just talking about kids, new people in the church. People that don't really know what's going on. People that don't fully understand. Sister Sheena talking about the news channels doing that fear factor thing to get you really hooked. Because you got to find out what happens next. They all do. Weather Channel does it. Let one of them storms get kicking up over the ocean. You'll sit in front of that TV for 2 hours, knowing that storm is 5 days away from you, but you're going to sit there and watch it spin out there over the water. Because you got to know where it's going to go. If it slows down, if it shifts any kind of direction, you've got to know, even though it doesn't affect you whatsoever. And I do it too. I'll download all kind of apps on my phone every time hurricane season starts up. And I'll watch them. When I get up in the morning, first thing I do, how far that storm moved last night? Where is it at now? Where is it going to? Has it turned? Did it hit that island? Did it dodge him? Is it coming this way? Is it going to go down through and hit Florida? They used to always go down and hit Florida, but the last couple of years they've gotten lost, and Georgia's their new destination, it seems like.
It looks like.
But even with that, it's just things that why worry? Some things is why even worry about asking? Why even ask that question of, well, why are these storms coming up here now? These cool mornings we've had here this past week, and they were talking about a snowstorm was supposed to hit New York and some parts up that way. And I told Brother Ray, I said, good gracious, these global warming folks must be headed for the hills. Because this cool weather won't let up. But if you ask anybody why with the weather, it's global warming. Everybody thinks they have answers for everything. Right. But Samantha come to me yesterday evening and she needed help with her science book. And like I told y'all, science, history, I'm good. Math, English, go to your mama. But she come up with me with her science book and she wanted me to read over some stuff to try to help her answer some of the questions that she was having to answer. And when I began to read it, it was explaining in that book of the importance of science. There is an importance to it. Without it, medical technology could not be where it is today. Nothing could be where it is right now without science. So I'm not one of those preachers that just wants to shoot down science at every corner because, it goes against the Bible. No, science and the Bible, really, true science, support one another. And that's what it was telling her, was that the science itself is not wrong, but the man's studies of science begin to get watered down, because like anything else that man gets their hands on, they begin to put their own understandings into it, their own ideas, their own thought processes, and not really and truly always digging down into finding out the why, really answering their questions. They add to. They put in their opinions. And some people, y'all get behind the church pulpits and do the exact same thing. And what you're supposed to do from up here is only read and preach the Word of God. If there's any haziness, if we're not sure, we're supposed to go by what we just read a while ago in James. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. And until God gives a clear picture on whatever it is, you leave it alone, set it on the back burner until you figure it out on your own. Right. That's why sometimes it gets kind of confusing, because I may have a message that I'm going through some kind of same thing of where the Lord's been dealing with me. I'm not 100% sure I fully understand it, so I really don't want to go into that right now. So I'm going to have to just set it to the side, and then it's like, God, I got to preach tonight, so God, I need something that I do know. I got to find something that I can get up with authority and with confidence, know that I'm not leading somebody the wrong way. I told y'all before, I could sit around and talk about hunting all day long. And the reason why is, if I got something wrong, if I give some bad information, it doesn't matter. It's just hunting. Whoop-de-doo. But if I get something wrong when it pertains to this and the soul of the person that I'm speaking to, that's a different ball game. That I don't want to miss the mark on. So that's the importance of, you've got to be willing to ask a question. Can't be, I'm a big bad leader. So she's talking about, she's reading a book written by T.D. Jakes. That man has written all kinds of books. We pick at Brother Ray every once in a while and tell him that he ain't a true bishop till he writes a book. And we pick about it, but as many books as T.D. Jakes has written, or any of the other ones has written down, they're still going to have to be willing to say, I don't know. God, I need a clearer picture here. I need a little bit more understanding. Now, when you get to the point where you begin to pray with God, and like we read a while ago in those little notes, where it talked about how what it gives you is a better discernment to tell, right from wrong. If you're looking after God-centered goals, not what you want centered goals, and when you pray to God and you're asking Him for direction and guidance, it'll feel like, well, God, you used to never show me this stuff this quick. I used to have to pray and pray and pray and pray. No, it's not that God's answering you faster. You're more sensitive into what you're doing, and you're feeling it, you're sensing it, you're understanding things quicker. You're understanding a lot of things faster. We were talking the other day about the anesthesiologists and how important they are during surgeries. Me and some people at work, because somebody said, well, all they do is walk in the room, put you to sleep, turn and walk back out. I said, no, they don't. They stay in there. Because if you start waking up, they got to know how much of that stuff to give you again to keep you under without giving you too much that you go so far asleep you don't wake back up. It takes a lot of know-how. That is one job I could not ever do. There's no way. I'd be willing. I don't care how much training I would have gotten. Oh, Brother Matt, you'd have went to plenty of school and you'd have understood. No. I walk in and I look at that table and there is a human life laying there that is depending on me to get all of my calculations just perfect. So when that surgeon is done with what they're doing, I can begin to counter that stuff that I have in there so that you'll begin to wake back up, and I got to get it all just right. No. I'll stick to babysitting grown folks. No. Now, at the same time, we're thanking God that He guides those people. I told y'all the story of how Sister Sheena, when we had the baby, and they were, Daddy, get up, go look at the baby. Look, I hear the conversation them nurses are having. I'm not getting in the way because I need them as calm as they could be. They were worried because the baby, Elizabeth, wasn't breathing yet. She's just laying there. The new nurse is kind of, hey, she ain't breathing. And I'm looking like, what did you just say? Well, the more seasoned nurse that's been through that a little bit more was like, look, you still got plenty of time. There's a window that we have, and we're still well inside it. Don't worry. Well, I think it was the anesthesiologist. Well, Daddy, go over there and look at the baby. Not yet. I'll wait. Paid attention to, I'm not bragging on myself, but when we paying attention to what's going on around us, and we don't just bust through the door all the time, and before we really figure out what's going on around us, because sometimes we can actually be causing the very chaos in our life because we haven't stopped long enough to figure out what's going on. We haven't been willing to ask that question of why. You know how somebody really knows you care about them? At some point in time in your relationship with them, you have looked at them and said, how are you doing? What's going on? Are you okay? When you ask questions like that, they know you know something, they really care about me. They've noticed maybe something going on. They noticed something different. I hadn't told anybody I've been going through something. But yet they still noticed that just something was wrong. And they were willing to ask me. Willing to ask. Sometimes you have to ask for some patience. Right. Hey, I'll be back to normal here in a little while. But right now I'm a little off. Got too much going on. Every time you turn around, your mind's on this problem, your mind's on that problem. Have we asked for God to handle all of them? How many of them are we still trying to fight with on our own? That's not being very wise. That's using that devil is using the very same things that you're fighting against. He ain't got to fight you. He'll just sit back and watch you wear yourself out with that fight. Yeah. There's a lot of big bucks that die every year, not by a hunter. It's because they get so pumped full of testosterone, they think they're a macho man, they're going to run that other buck off of their place, and their antlers get locked up, and they can't turn each other loose, so they just continuously fight and fight and fight until they literally just die of exhaustion. When if they would have the little bit of thought process to just kind of stop and each of them cool off a little bit, they might figure out a way to get them things off and unhook and go about their business. Yeah, they're just an animal, but still, and yet we'll do the same thing. You'll fight with that vision that you see every time you look in the mirror. And I'm talking to myself on this. You will fight it. I don't like it. I've got to change it. It ain't good enough. It ain't up to par. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And all the time that your goals are beginning to shift, like that note said a while ago, from God-centered goals into what you're thinking you need to be doing goals. How are we going to know what God wants? We ask Him. So I'm going to hush tonight because I know while that's going, we'll tell everybody, the ones that's not been to church yet, we still miss them. Yeah. We understand everything's still a little iffy, like Brother McDaniel said. Everything, it ain't went away. We just we had to start services back at some point, but we're still looking forward to seeing a lot of people that hadn't made it yet. We love y'all, and y'all know I love you, because if I didn't, I would never agree to be recorded. But, so, does anybody need prayer tonight before we dismiss?